So if you believe AI infrastructure is the backbone of the next decade, then ignoring APLD would actually break your own investment logic. Let's jump into it. So APLD stock is going to be a top contender in the data center markets. We're going to get into this one. And also, we're still in that trade with TSSI. This morning, we were trading it at market open. We're up about $612 today on that trade. So just want to keep you guys updated on that data center configurer that we're trading. APLD is going to be the $35 a share range that if it holds, things look really good. If it can't quite hold these levels here, then things are looking more bearish. So we talked about this yesterday, that there's a tremendous upside for APLD. In fact, we've seen them surge 75% over the last few weeks or days, actually. But then you see a pullback of about 10% down into this $35 range, and that this $35 support is very key. If we see them hold around this $35 level, 35, maybe 34.50, somewhere in here, that's good. You might see this continuation of this trend, something like this, back up into this $40 range, which would be about a 50% increase. The key here in what you want to know, and I'm going to just share with you this, that if you understand it will help you to be able to really get a grasp on most data center stocks, is that while we have a lot of news coming out, you have the tariff news coming out today, you got the oil stuff in Venezuela, you got the potential for data centers to even have more regulation around the construction and things like that, you still have no change in the fact that this company, this is what you want to watch for most companies, is that they reported more revenue increases that is starting to match the pipeline of deals that we saw that they were starting to build very quickly. And so the decision to invest in the company, totally up to you. When it comes to how I'm playing this, is in the short-term position. We don't have any short-term trades on APLD currently. It's had some very strong surges. In fact, when we talked about it yesterday, we said there is a level where the RSI, the MACD, you could see that here, overbought. It's looking overbought, and that it may pull back down. And that if we looked back on the 1-year trend, when we started covering it here, somewhere around $5 a share, and it was at $3 a share in April, and they continue to run back, is that when we are seeing this trend, they're up to this resistance level around that $40 range, and that they potentially could get rejected on the near term. Now, they just pulled slightly below this EMA. Doesn't mean we're going to see a full correction back down into $24, $25, but it's always a possibility, and it would still have to break below this $35 range for them to considerably sell down to that $30 price point. But one thing to consider, and I'll get rid of the drawings here for a second, is there's multiple things to watch right now. Number one, you got the financials, which came in much more bullish, and that they actually increased revenue largely. Number two, their cash increase. So look at that, 126 million in revenue in the last quarter, a 250% increase there year over year. And then you have a quarterly increase. Their cash now up to, or their total assets up to 5.2 billion. Okay, so very large surge. And their market cap under 10 billion. So we still see them at a point where their pipeline has over 15 billion. So they could continue up into that $15 billion range. And we could see that those levels, which would be about 50% higher than where they're currently at, up to maybe about 40 or 50 or $60 a share. And that's what we're watching. Now, oftentimes when we see these trends up or down, one of the things to watch from a technical perspective, we know the AI market's booming, but from a technical perspective, you could watch and see that a lot of times in a bearish market, they're going to be holding below this EMA, this exponential moving average, this blue line here. And in a bullish market, they're a lot of times going to be holding above the blue line. It's going to be more bullish. So bullish above the blue, bearish below the blue. And you see that a lot of times in technicals. It's quite common. It's used to determine the entries and exits, and we use it quite often. And if you look at some of the near-term projections we were getting this morning on APLD, it was anticipating some pullbacks in Prophecy AI. And in Prophecy AI, this uses Grok or OpenAI or Claude or Gemini. We can see all of the AI model projections when using our analysis that we go through. It's about a 21-stage analysis. And it was looking now in the next hour or next week, actually anticipating that pullback to around that $34 price range. So this isn't something that we're looking at and say, oh my gosh, be careful, things are pulling back, we might see a huge correction. It could be similar to what we see a lot of times, which is where it's pushing up, we get a nice surge, and then it sells down momentarily below that EMA, and then we see the continuation. It happens quite often. You could see it right here on November 25th, right here on December 1st, right on the December 3rd. And right now, it looks similar to that we might see them hold above $35. But again, the Prophecy app and looking at some of the AI projections are looking like that $34 sell down here. It makes a lot of sense. And that's what we saw this morning. This is actually a pretty early projection as we saw it sell down to about that price point this morning. But then when you look into the longer term timeframes, you do see some of those corrections just fizzling out and seeing more bullish momentum into the next 3 months or into 2026. Look at this, up to $48 a share, $48.99, which would be a 38% increase from here. And so it's important to realize that, while things are really bullish and we see them get up to the highs and it gets scary up here, that when we looked at their financials, we looked at the news, and you could look at just the general charts. While it is, are they going to pull down further? It's also very key to realize this could be a smaller pullback in a greater uptrend. Now, you had the news, the tariffs are obviously going to play some impact. We see them down 4% today. The Supreme Court ruling was a key factor. We were actually working to tune on in to it live this morning in our daily live trading session in StockMate. And while we were doing so, we weren't able to get the latest announcement. I don't know if anything recently came out, but there hasn't been any releases just yet, according to what we're seeing. I don't believe. Haven't seen it. But anyway, we are anticipating the AI market will not be heavily affected by this, and that we'll see a large cycle continue for the market. However, short-term volatility, again, looking at some of those pullbacks, be careful. You want to have risk management on the short term, and on the long term, go into hold long-term positions. If we do enter any short-term trades, though, like we do oftentimes at market open, we'll probably have very close kind of stops, and volatility tolerance will not be very great. It will probably be within 1/5 of that of the margin for profit we're going for negatively. So meaning if we're going for 10% profit, we'll probably have a 2.5 or 2% negative stop. If we're going for 20% profit, so maybe something like this, kind of this continuation up from where they're at up into this level, we may have a higher risk tolerance of 5% or 4%, somewhere in there, to have the tolerance to withstand some volatility, while triggering trades that are in upside potential that's just bigger than the loss potential. So bigger upside, asymmetric trades. But once again, the profit potential, when we're looking at the longer term, if you look at the news from the company, we can look over in Prophecy AI, some of the reportings that recently came out, when we look at some of the summaries of the articles, their current market cap increase, current levels looking to increase further, and that we would potentially see their growth to take place in the near term from all of the constructions that are actually wrapping up. Meaning they finish some constructions, they're going to get paid for those constructions more now that things are up and running. So you had CoreWeave that they're building. There's a $7 billion deal, which was later transitioned into an $11 billion deal. They're building the data center solutions for AI, And they also are doing it economically correct. And to my knowledge and what I know about doing things right for Mother Nature and Mother Earth, it seems they're doing it in a way that's also of integrity, with the wind, the solar, the point of generation being good. In cold places, so cooling costs are not expensive in North Dakota. The winters are very cold there. And their AI factories are also going to be in tandem or being worked on, not only by them and third parties, but also with companies that are already in the game. Supermicro is helping, for example, Elon build the Colossus. It's his XAI, the largest data center in the world, Colossus. And Supermicro is one of the main companies there. They're also working with APLD here. NVIDIA is an investor in APLD along with Dell, Intel, Hewlett Packard, and others. And if we look at some of the top transactors, for example, inside of Prophecy AI here, you can see that NVIDIA is one of the companies to be buying. The insiders also, you see some interesting activity as while institutions seem to be buying more increased positions than decreased. The insiders, a few more sells than buys. However, the sells, while in high volume of sells, the actual dollar amounts of the sells has been fairly low. You can see compared to some of the buys in the millions of dollars, the sells are just, a couple thousand shares, something like that, which notably still keeps bullish momentum. In fact, you saw the CEO just the last week purchase more, 1.5 million shares, 4.5 million shares, to increase his total to 4.5. That's pretty tremendous. That's about $157 million purchase there from the CEO. So you see some more investments in their own company, which is good news. Appreciate you all. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you ever do want to tune to our live sessions, it can be the second link below. Let me know your thoughts on APLD, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.